Good morning. This one's going to be a little bit different. Everybody in this room knows something about this topic, and it's called spit. We're going to talk. It's very personal to us, right? So I'm Nina Mclain. My background, I'm a nurse anesthesiologist, nurse anesthetist with a PhD. So I'm doctor of nurse anesthesia, but that's a whole nother presentation. So we're going to talk a little bit today about mechanically ventilated patients and some of the complications that we have related to those. These are comatose patients that are on mechanical ventilators. Much of what I'm going to talk about was developed pre-COVID. And so if you can amplify everything I talk to when I speak to mechanically ventilated patients, you can understand the volume of what we're talking about here, because obviously COVID required so many more ventilators than we had. So in general, mechanically ventilated patients are really high risk for two hospital-acquired infections that are extremely costly. And one is called ventilator-associated pneumonia, and the other one is called central line-associated bacterial infections, or Class B. So VAP and Class B. That's what I'll be discussing today. As patients are on the ventilator, they continue to produce spit and saliva, and they cannot swallow. So it's up to the nurse to come in and suction the patient every hour, every 30 minutes, whatever their time frame, if they're not coding someone next door. And if they are, you're continue to collect this amount of sputum. It can seep down your throat into your lungs, and it's the Garden of Eden for bacterial growth at that point. On top of that, these secretions, if they do not run down your throat, they can run out their mouth. Okay. Most mechanically ventilated patients have a central line or a large access IV, either in their subclavian vessel or their interjugular vessel. And as you know, you've seen pictures of everybody in the ICU, they're always got their head cocked to the left and they got their right and their spit's running out. So it's touching these insertion points, which is what? A perfect harboring place for infection. So now we're going to let this spit run out of the mouth, collect on these places that introduce more infection. So there's two big hospital-acquired infections, and that's what I want you to focus on. So it's labor intensive for the nurse to suction the patients. Again, you just hope that she's not tied up when you're the one on the ventilator needing suctioning. They're usually routinely scheduled every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, every hour. It depends on what you're in there for. And so if the nurse is able to do that, or hopefully she is able to do that, then we can remove those secretions. But guess what? She steps away, and that whole 15 minutes before she comes back, or that whole 30 minutes before she gets back, you're still creating sputum. It's still collecting. It's still draining. It's still drooling. Okay. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on. So but pre-COVID, there was approximately 1.5 million mechanically ventilated patients per day across the country. This is just US. This is not ex-US, okay? And so post-COVID and during COVID, we know there's a whole lot more. So if you can keep that picture in your mind. So the significant issue here is that a single case, that's one patient out of that 1.5 million that develops ventilator-associated pneumonia or Class B costs $45,000 to $95,000 to treat. One patient. Okay. So if we can eliminate 10% of that, we can help healthcare costs. If we can eliminate 50%, we're really doing great. Okay. Well, as an anesthetist, I'm in a long case one day, and I had a patient in what we call Trendelenburg. So the head's tilted down, larger lady, long case, drooling. And every 15 minutes I'm suctioning, and then it's every 10, and then it's every 5, and it's like every 3 minutes. I'm just constantly suctioning. And the whole time I'm thinking, how much micro trauma am I causing to this lady? Every time I put this rigid catheter basically into her throat and these soft tissues, suction, I'm introducing more opportunity for infection, these little mini micro traumas, if you think of it. Now, that may not be real visible, but you wonder why you have a sore throat sometimes when you wake up from surgery. It's not that endotracheal tube. This might be that suction catheter. So the incidence and the risk is between 12 and 30%. And the reason I'm giving such large ranges is because there's huge data variance out there in all the literature of hospital-acquired infections. They've regrouped them to try to cover up that, in my opinion, that there's so much out there. So they used to have VAP or ventilator pneumonia in its own category, but they thought, hey, if we slide that under hospital-acquired infections, it can kind of get diluted a little bit. So there's a new bundle for reimbursement that they've put it under, but it's still there. It didn't go away. It's not zero. It still happens. The same with Class Bs. They're under that same category. So If we are looking at 4.3 average ventilator days per patient, in higher risk populations, it's even higher. So somebody with pre-existing lung disease, somebody with pre-existing sepsis or some other infection in the body, it's going to be even more important to keep them from getting this VAP and clasping. So this is my oral suction device myself and my research partner developed as I was sitting in that very long case. You know, your mind has to do something. So besides watching your patient very closely, I was like, why doesn't somebody just invent a sponge with a suction that's intermittent every few seconds, it's going off, slide it down the back of the throat. Then I can sit here and worry about these other things I need to worry about besides this drool. And I kind of went, I wonder if anybody's done that. So I went and looked, and they had not, to my surprise. And so we talked. He's a facial plastic surgeon, ear, nose, and throat doc. And we kind of came up with the shape and did some research from the Genome Project on different things and came up with this device and decided it needed to be encased in something that would give it a little stiffness so that when we slide it in, it's very easy. It can be left 24 to 48 to 72 hours, taken out and thrown away, and a new one can be put in when you're in the ventilator. Extremely simplistic medical grade sponge with silicone coating. And then we thought, maybe we should do a biogel coating as well. So we went down that road a little bit, but that's kind of just the concept to keep in your mind when I say OSD, oral suction device. Yeah, the lawyer named that. We knew that if someone buys it or licenses it, they'll rename it anyway. So we looked at the hydrogels, and what we liked about a hydrogel coating was it could be impregnated with medication, bacteriostatic things. It can be impregnated with the CHG, gluconate, chlorhexidine. And it could also be drug delivery if it was hydrogel. So a drug could be impregnated in that locally. And as the hydrogel allows the release, and that can be controlled by the technical aspects of the hydrogel, Mississippi Polymer Institute helped with this and designed it so that can degrade and deliver those drugs locally so that the infection fighting component of this starts before the suctioning of the secretions do. So we're kind of the two-way path on the hydrogel. The initial product being the silicone, and then a more advanced, more pharma related application for this. So our path forward, where we are right now, we've done some customer discovery on a national level for the end users. We've done bedside interviews with bedside care technicians. This is one of those problems that's created a bedside problem that we're bringing to industry. That we found a solution. Now we need somebody to help us get it to the market. And that's where we are right now. We've done some clinical not preclinical trials of absorption of different thicknesses of secretions and what level of pressure is needed and is acceptable. So our funding needs, we're looking for some more prototype development. We're almost finished. We're right there at the edge of finishing. We've got a few more things we want to tweak. We also need to do some more verification and validation with our marketing end user research. And then we want to have to go through the 510K submission pathway, which is the medical device pathway, not the pharma pathway. So we're focusing right now on the non-pharma. So the good investment highlight for us is that it's a return on investment would be pretty early. Pretty quick turnaround. It's an early stage startup, and we have a virtual company. So we have a CEO that I'll tell you about in just a second, who's taken a product from conception to the New York Stock Exchange and a IPO, and then ended up selling her company to Big Pharma. It's a 510 pathway, which is very attractive. It is utilizes existing reimbursement codes, which is really nice because they're already out there. So we're able to go ahead and tap into what's existing and maybe apply for some additional ones. And the biggest excitement thing for me is there's a high margin potential for adoption of standards of care. If we can produce this, and literally the silicone version costs about $3 to produce on a small scale. Large scale, I'm sure, would be a whole lot less. Biogel would cost about $4 to produce each. Medicare should be willing, and I use them because we all know as Medicare goes, insurance goes. If Medicare should be willing to pay $50 or $25 or $30 for this device to prevent a $45,000 to $95,000 treatment that they're going to have to supply later. We already have the patents on 3 different patents. And that's what it looks like inserted. And that's what it looks like packaged. Thank you.